Hello, it's it's me. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Um, Sorry about that. I did say that I think I remember saying that I was gonna do this more, but I'm lazy, I'm lazy and forgetful, so I didn't get around to it. This is gonna be rambly as hell and probably badly edited because I don't like doing that. But you've got to do something. So since I haven't done this for a while, I should probably just go over the basics, like how I start doing stuff. Um, how do I start doing stuff? Usually I start with like chord sequences or just like cool synth sounds, and then I build chords around that. So so I'll build a combinator, call it synth one. And inside the combinator, I usually put a line 6 to 2. Then you want to put in a Thor holding shift so it doesn't plug in automatically. So it'll look like that. It's just a clean Thor one analog oscillator with sawtooth, square, um, triangle, and sine waves. There's also a bunch of other oscillators. There's the wavetable, phase, FM, multi, and noise. I only really use the analog FM and noise ones, and I only really use Thor. And then I immediately put a soft tube on there with the warm up patch because it makes it sound nicer. It would help if I plugged it in. Awesome. So there you go, you've got your Thor. I usually take the pitch bend down to like 1 because I like to put automation through it, through this little bit. And depending on if it's a bass or a synth, I'll have it set to poly for synths, well for chord synths. For lead synths it'll be legato, and for basses it'll be legato as well. Take the velocity down. It's not really useful unless you have a keyboard that has a velocity control, like good velocity control. Yeah, so that's the sound you've got now. What kind of sound am I feeling? Well, let's just leave it like this for now. Another thing I like to do is just put some effects in because it helps me come up with ideas. So this is the echo, which is the default um, delay unit that comes with Reason. The new versions, the old one is the DLL, which isn't very versatile. So yeah, so I'm sending 64. I usually like to pump this out here to 120. Set that to 1.8. Also bring the BPM down to like 90. Feedback up again to like halfway. I like to, on the LFO thing, I like to bring the rate down a bit and then bring the LFO amount up, which okay, maybe that feedback is a bit too. I don't know if you can hear that, but like it sounds mono. Like there's no like stereo feel to it, but when you pump this up a bit, it adds a bunch of stereo field thingy, and I think that's because this is the modulation thing. So this is basically like pitch bending the wet output a bit, so it's phasing slightly with the clean audio, which gives it that stereo effect. You can also just turn on the ping pong delay. which I don't know. You can use that. It's totally up to like your tastes. Personally, I don't really like the ping pong delay that much, although it depends. Okay, and so we got the echo, and then I like to put a reverb unit above the line mixer, because then you get the dry signal and the wet signal are both feeding through this, so you get the delay kind of what's the word? Not disapparates. Well, it blends out. You can hear that, and I don't know, it just sounds cool. And I really like to use the delay absorb patch. Obviously with the low end. The low end and the low mids taken out a bit, because you end up with a muddy mix if you have too much low end and low end and low mid in the reverb and in the delay as well, which I should probably I forgot a step already. I like to put an equalizer in the send, so before the send, which is when it comes out, when the dry signal is split out of the line mixer, I like to put a equalizer in here and then cut out a lot of the of the low end, just so that I'm just making sure that there's not going to be any muddiness. So because muddy mixes are hellish to listen to. So yeah, so this is basically like what I'll start with when I'm like starting out making something, and I never use like I never save any of these patches, so I'm always building it from scratch. So every time I make a song, like this will never look exactly the same. It'll always be slightly different, because I never remember what I like things to be set to. So yeah. So then I'll put a note to track in the note lane. I never know what this is called. I just call it the note lane. I want to make sure that that's on, because it's usually off. I did set the BPM. And now you can start messing around with notes and try and come up with something. So this might take a little bit, so I might speed it up. Alright, well that usually takes way longer. That's probably a record for me. Another thing that I've forgotten to do is when you start layering notes, which is what I like to do, and obviously with all these effects, the noise, no, the volume of the signal, like the level of the signal, is going up every time you add effects to it. So a thing I like to do, this is probably really unorthodox, is to well, I'll put a compressor like over the top of everything. So after everything that I put in here, I'll put a compressor with a soft neon and adapton and just leave it like that. And I'll also have a compressor down here with the same settings. So and it's very gentle. It's a very gentle way of like controlling how the signal how the signal is how loud the signal is. So if I add another oscillator, uh, I don't know, just do that. You can see that it's like way louder now. But if you look up here, this shouldn't change too much. And that really helps. Obviously, because it's quite a gentle thing, it doesn't like squash the sound into oblivion. But it does help when mixing. It also makes it sound a little bouncier, if that makes sense, because this compressor at the top here obviously has all of the signal, so it's got the signal from the delay, and it's got the signal from the reverb running through it. So obviously, because the dry signal is louder than these two, the dry signal kind of squashes the these two signals, and it adds a kind of bouncy effect to it, to the sound, if that makes sense. It's probably I haven't described that very well, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. All right, so this is pretty much done for now. Like, the most I'll change maybe is like this. Another thing I'll do is in the utilities, the pulsar, which is another comes of reason thing. CV. Well, it's an LFO. Slap the first output into the pitch bend hole here on the back of the Thor. Turn off tempo sync, so it's kind of it's not grid tight, and then increase the shuffle a little bit and bring the level down slightly. And this is like part of the first phase of making the synth sound old, which is a thing that I love, because digital synths tend to sound kind of harsh if you don't do stuff like this to them. So this is basically just adding a bit of variation to the pitch. Because a lot of old synthesizers like have a Korg something next to me. I forget which one it is, but you know, like the pitch, like whenever you play a C note, you press any note on there, and then you try and hook it up to this, and it's like. It's not the same note at all, and every time you press it, it's slightly different, and it's not a setting in the in the actual synthesizer. It's just like the hardware warming up and cooling down and all that. It's quite a cool thing. So obviously this isn't perfectly replicating that, but it's pretty close. You know, with this slow LFO rate and the shuffle that changes it ever so slightly. It's not true chaos, but it's close enough. There's two other things I'll do to add that vintage sound, and that is to add a a Scream 4 between the reverb and the master compressor. Set it to tape down to about damage down to like 25. This parameter up to like 110, then leave that one alone. Turn this up a bit. And this is essentially just more saturation. This is like tape. This is just tape saturation, which is, well, this is saturation here on the clean signal. This is saturation here on the wet signal. Which in my head, and I might be wrong here, but in my head, I'm thinking this is like how if you plug a synthesizer into a cool like mixing desk, like a Neve or something, and it has those those really nice inputs, those vintage inputs that like warm everything up. Like this is what I'm trying to recreate with that, putting that over the top of everything. If that makes sense. And then the last thing I'll do is slap a ECF42 filter on top of the Scream 4, set to low pass 24, ends down, the resonance up to like 30, and then the filter frequency around like somewhere between like 112 and like 98, usually 108. And that basically takes out frequencies from around here, like between 5.1 and 10k hertz, which just gives it that what's the word? Well, lo-fi sound, because you know with low fidelity sound, like the high end tends to not be as crystal clear as with newer hi-fi stuff.